So on
Go ahead, man.
Friday at around what, like 11:30 a.m. or something, or maybe like 12:30, I was heading back home on a train and I get a little notification and then more came in and then to the point where just everybody was texting me about Deshaun Watson to the Cleveland Browns. And, I mean, when I got the news, I was just in shock because he'd initially said no, right? He was down to the Saints and the Falcons, but Andrew Berry and his staff basically came in and said, we really still want you. And they offered him a 5 year, 230 mil contract, fully guaranteed, which is $80 million more than Aaron Rodgers, who has the highest guaranteed money up until, Friday. And, basically to kind of recap it, right? Watson said no to them, but then the kind of the offers that Atlanta and the Saints were giving weren't like, they were kind of retracting a little bit back. And then Watson's agent said, what are you guys still interested in? Cleveland said, hell yeah, we're going to give you a second offer. And the 230 mil was, I think, what Watson could not refuse. And then also there was a story that came out today that said he was just in love with Cleveland's roster and he felt like he had the best chance to win, especially behind that offensive line. So before we kind of get into the football things, I did want to give a quick disclaimer, especially because what is going on, off the field with Deshaun Watson. And the Browns did wait 2 days to actually post it on their social media, whereas the Texans did it right away. And part of it was because, of the backlash that they expected to get, and they did get. If you look at their Instagram post, that's comments are split, 50-50. Actually, I would honestly say even more, against the trade. And everyone, anyone has every right to be kind of angry at it. And though Watson's not facing any criminal charges, there are still 22 civil cases that have yet to be solved. And obviously, the NFL will go through investigation with it. And, I don't want to say, I think both of us are not going to take a side on that. I'm not going to say whether I think he's innocent or guilty because, frankly, I just don't know enough on it. And I don't want to, take a side on that. But what I will say is, I think the NFL will I hopefully get it right. And whether that's a 6 game suspension, whether that isn't any, I think that's yet to be determined. But just a quick disclaimer, right? We don't know what the off the field issues is.
Mhm.
And I don't want to really say whether he's innocent or not. But I guess that's still on the table for not only the Browns to figure out, but the NFL as well, and Deshaun Watson. So with that being said, I think now we can get into the football side, and I'll take the Browns side, and then maybe Shrikar can get into the Texans. And who knows, maybe if we disagree on anything, we'll say. But for the Browns, from a football perspective, of course, this is just a slam dunk of a move. I know you give up a lot. I think it's now 6 picks instead of five. The trade package got a little bit updated. I can kind of read it to you. It's what? I think Watson and a 2024 fifth for three first, 2022, 2023, 2024, a third round pick, and a sixth round pick now in 2024. So that's the full package. It's a big one. I think this is the biggest pick trade, package in history. But you get a guy who we last saw lead the league in passing with his number one receiver being Brandon Cooks and his second receiver being Randall Cobb. So this guy is really, really talented, a top five talent to say the least. And, I know he's been over a year out of the NFL game speed, but his talent is undeniable. And at 26 years old, he is at the prime of his career, and he goes to a team with Nick Chubb, Kareem Hunt, Amari Cooper, David Njoku, an offensive line with Jedrick Wills, Joe Bitonio, Wyatt Teller, Jack Conklin, Pro Bowls all around the defense as well, right? I mean, it's just a great fit, and he now is arguably the best quarterback in that division. I think it's between him and Burrow, and take your pick, but I think Watson has a little bit more of that off script ability that Joe Burrow may not have. So now the Browns at least are in discussions long term with the Bengals and Ravens of who runs this AFC North because, with Baker Mayfield, we'll probably touch on it later. It's just Deshaun Watson is a better quarterback. He is a better talent. As much as I love Mayfield or I'll defend him, we can both agree on that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, from a football perspective, it is tremendous. And yes, they gave up a lot, but I think the thing we need to realize is that if your quarterback is playing great, you can't pay him enough because he's succeeding. He's giving you what you want. And it'll for Patrick Mahomes, despite all the money, he got him a Super Bowl. Like that's priceless. So if Watson gives you a chance to do that, I am totally okay with the move. And I think again, this is more of a long-term investment rather than just for this year. He's only 26 and he's locked up till he's 31. and he could get another contract at 31. And we've seen how long quarterbacks can play at, at a high level. We're seeing Brady do it. We're seeing Rodgers do it. So I think this is a tremendous move, and we've got him locked up, and he seems excited about it. So that's my thoughts for the Browns, and I'll let Shrikar take it over for the Texans.
Yeah, I mean, just going off of that. So this afternoon, I made, a power ranking, I guess, of sorts of all the teams in the AFC. I had the Browns third in the division. And I
Yeah, I
know
disagreed with you a little bit on that. I
people will
waited for
disagree.
the episode to do
But
it.
here's the thing. I'm talking only for this year, and I expect Watson to not play, around half the year. So it weighed a lot. Here's what I will say. I think 2023 is the year that, the Browns will really get this thing rolling and they'll really jump up, the power rankings here. Because if you're running with Jacoby Brissett for half the season or so, I mean, I can't really put you much higher. I can't put you over a healthy Ravens squad. I can't put you over the Bengals who just went to a Super Bowl. Like, that's just how it is. But I think 2023, I think that's going to be the year for the Browns. And obviously, as Anish said, it's a long-term investment. You got him until you're 31. And he's going to be entering his prime years, which is pretty scary to think about with this Browns roster, which is great.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
For Houston, though, if I were the Texans, I would see what Davis Mills can do with a full season. As well as that, I mean, an off season working with a new coaching staff. You got Lovie Smith there. If he's the answer beyond this year, I mean, the Texans can utilize their draft capital. You can continue to build around him. If not, then Mills can definitely be replaced with one of those picks, and he can either stay as a good backup or you can obviously flip him for more selections. I would say the Texans have a lot more questions than answers, but I think Davis Mills is an interesting player for them at QB. So I'm intrigued to see what happens with that whole situation there. But it's definitely a team that's still undergoing a very, very long rebuild that, is almost like it's just starting with this Deshaun Watson trade, even though last year was really the year that we knew they would be rebuilding. So for Houston fans, I mean, I'm sorry. Just be patient here, but at least you unloaded Watson. I guess if you're the front office, that's somewhat of a good move in hindsight. But oh man, it sucks to see him go, especially with how much potential we saw out of him. Like, we thought Houston would be competing for years with him. So it sucks to see, but at least now you're getting a jump start here.
Yeah, I mean, they were 2 games away from a Super Bowl
Yeah.
2019. So, I mean, it's like he had 2 straight division titles, right? And he won a playoff game against Josh Allen. So it's not like they didn't do anything with him, right? And I think the sky was the limit for a team like Houston. But now I'm really happy with the package they got back. If I'm Houston, right? Like you now have 3 years with multiple first round picks. It like this. I mean, the way you can build this team is just it's endless opportunities, right? And I think just find some stability at head coach, and they've got some players, right? It's not like this roster is completely terrible, and obviously you want to kind of start out young and see if there's a guy out there, right? Like as you mentioned, is Davis Mills the answer? I think this is the year to find out. And if not, you've got 2 first round picks in 2023 if you want to go get a quarterback, right? Because
Right.
let's face it, I think they'll probably be, at the bottom tier of the AFC this year. I just don't think.
I think they're the worst team in the AFC.
Yeah,
Personally.
as of right now, I mean, I don't like Lovey Smith as, a long-term answer. And I think right now I would probably say that the Jags are better. And I mean, just even like the bottom tier, like you'd probably have to go with
I'd go with the Jags and Jets over the Texans, but I think those three are easily the bottom tier. Like,
yeah. I mean, for Houston though, right? Like, I mean, from an offensive perspective, right? Davis Mills, like he doesn't even have that many, like he
he's
doesn't even have
limited.
that many weapons. But I guess the draft capital is key because now they have what the third pick and the 13th pick,
13.
right? So there's some potential there. Like
Right, but even at those picks, what if they decide to go defense? I mean, this whole roster needs a giant revamp in like the worst ways. Like, you could go Kyle Hamilton at 3, at 13. You know, I don't know.
maybe a
Maybe you could
receiver,
go after
maybe.
receiver potentially. You still got Brandon. You still have Brandon Cooks, right? Who knows? I don't know how they're going to deal with that, but it's best player available for them 100%.
Yeah, and not to mention, I mean, well, going back to the Browns, I want to say this too from a football perspective, of course. there is a slight concern with Watson and Cooper in cold weather, right? Like, because these guys have played in warm weather their entire lives. Like, it's not like these guys are used to it. And Cleveland has bad weather starting in October, so
Yeah.
it's not like these guys can't adjust. I mean, like Watson played well in that divisional round in the first quarter. Like they were up 24-0. It wasn't just a fluke, right? So it's not like he has never done it. It's just now can you do it consistently, right? And when they're going to be practicing over the summer, it's going to be in warm weather, right? Because I'm sure Watson and Cooper will get together
Yeah.
somewhere, maybe in Texas or something, maybe in Cleveland, who knows? But even in Cleveland, it's going to be warm at that time of year. So that's a bit of a concern that I have. Um, but again, in terms of the AFC North, I mean, this is just going to be a bloodbath. And like the AFC is just, it's so stacked. Like,
It's too stacked.
I know. And I mean, Deshaun Watson, obviously, I'm just glad the whole saga has ended, right? It's been a year. And if you had told me a year ago that we would have gotten him, I would have laughed in your face. I mean, because, I mean, we'll wait to maybe, I mean, if you want to transition it now,
Yeah, do
to
it.
Baker Mayfield.
Mhm.
I I'll start off.
Sure.
I'm kind of heartbroken. Like it really sucks how he's getting treated right now. Like he does not deserve this. I'm sorry. I mean, I made a post on my little Instagram page for it. I mean, it hurts so bad to see a guy who took us from 1-31 to a playoff win, and people are just regarding him like he can't play in this league. And he has had two stretches where you could regard him as a top 10 QB in the entire NFL, and people are just scoffing at the fact that he can ever be good again. I mean, this is a guy who up until he separated his shoulder had a 97 passer rating, right, and had a 2-to-1 touchdown to interception ratio. So it's not like the guy can't play. And the way Browns fans are kind of treating it, obviously now they're a little bit more of a split once we got Watson, but I mean, you can also point to the fact that maybe he handled the whole situation prematurely, but I think his final straw was when the Browns said they wanted an adult at quarterback, right? And
Yeah.
they were openly going to Houston, right, on Jimmy Haslam's private plane without telling him. I think that frustrated me, the Baker fan in me the most, just because it's your best quarterback in 20 years and you couldn't even tell him, right? So I mean, if I'm frustrated, imagine him. But maybe if you want to talk about where Baker could go at this point, who are the suitors, because there's not that many left. But I mean, maybe also can answer this, like, can he still play in this league?
Well, I'll answer that latter question first. I 100% think he still can. I mean, he's a number one overall pick for a reason. You don't give up on guys like that, especially with what he's shown us that rookie year. Obviously 2020, he led the Browns to their first playoff one. Of course he can still play. If he can turn around that franchise, I can't write him off. But he's the next big quarterback domino. Obviously, we saw Deshaun Watson in Cleveland. We're getting Matt Ryan in Indy. We'll dive into that more in a bit. Baker Mayfield is that next domino. So he has a year left on his rookie deal. He's got a cap hit of $18.8 million. So it's pretty good. He has the upside of a potential extension. As I looked around at the NFL landscape, there is one team that made the absolute most sense to me, and it's the Seattle Seahawks. For Seattle, I mean, Mayfield, he's not going to vault them out of the basement, but look, the Seahawks are loaded with picks after the Wilson deal. If the Seahawks really want Mayfield like that, I mean, they can definitely get him. But still, I don't know if they will, because you could obviously draft a quarterback, in April, you got a top 10 pick, or you could even wait until next offseason when the rookie crop is going to be much stronger. So I think Mayfield, he's going to be the next domino. He's going to be the next guy to be traded. The question is where. If I had to guess, I'm going to say Seattle.
I want him to go to Seattle really badly. Like, look, this notion that Baker can't play is a whole bunch of BS. I'm sorry. Like, it is so wrong.
Yeah.
I mean, and it's not even me being biased. Just watch the tape. I mean, this guy literally had an 11-game stretch, and I know whoever watches Skip and Shannon, they know this thing gets brought up way too much, but it can't be ignored that he had 20 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, right? And was graded the 4th best quarterback of 2020. I just cannot ignore that stretch, right? And I think for Baker Mayfield, right, it's just he was playing 14 games on terrible mechanics because of, as I've mentioned, right, torn labrum, fully separated shoulder, right, with the crack in the bone, and he had a pulled groin, left and right knee soreness, and a pulled heel. I mean, it's like this guy was literally hobbling on the field, right? And to his demise, and I said this ever since week 6, he should not have been on the field, right? That was his
Yeah,
ultimate doing.
I
But the
agree.
competitor in him, and that's what makes me love him so much. It's because he wants to go out there and he just wants to compete. And I think that's a perfect thing for Seattle right now, right? Because Drew Lock is not your answer. And it's not like Seattle is full of bums. I mean, like they still have DK Metcalf. They still have Tyler Lockett. And if we're being honest, that's probably the best receiving core Mayfield is going into with, right?
Yeah, it is.
Because in 2019, yeah, you could argue Jarvis Landry and Odell, but both were hurt, right? Odell had the sports hernia. People forget about that. So I think this is a really good core that he'd be going into. And yeah, his offensive line isn't great, but he also played with a offensive line in 2021 that had 3 of its 5 starters missing for a lot of the time.
Right.
So people, I think, are forgetting a little bit of the circumstances that Baker was in. And I think Seattle, as you mentioned, is a great fit. He goes to the NFC, right? Where it's wide open. It
Yeah,
really is. And the quarterbacks there are just, they're not that good. Like that he could easily come in, right? And I think he has a ceiling of being the third best quarterback in the entire conference. Like
he
I'm
does.
really being honest about that.
And if
I
it
think
wasn't
that's
if it
yeah.
wasn't the Seahawks, I mean, maybe we could transition here. I'll let you get your final thought out. I would have said the Colts. I mean, that's the team he preferred, but they got their situation.
I would have loved to see Baker and Frank Reich. I'm actually afraid. I was actually going to be afraid of that he would, absolutely bite us in the butt if he went to Indianapolis. So I'm glad he's not. But just to kind of round out everything, as a Browns fan, obviously, there's not much of us out here, but it's a it's a bit of excitement and it's a bit of a bittersweet moment just because this is the guy that, man, like he's the first quarterback that I've finally had stability with, and I could finally, he gave us the biggest thing that any Browns fan could ever hope for. Literally, I just said it, hope.
Yeah,
Every game I thought we had a chance because of that guy. I finally had hope for this team that just has let me down in so many different ways. But again, he gave me the greatest football moment of my life, and I'll never forget that. So,
well said.
a bit of a touching end there, but